All right, so you've been doing elimination in this unit for lesson 3, and we're just going to take a step back and we're going to add on to elimination, and we're going to do some word problems with it. So, most important thing with word problems is most time you're going to have to write your own equations. So, we're still going to use those same 5 steps that you learned in the previous video with elimination. The only difference is when you're reading your problem, defining your variables is going to be very important. So I listed these steps out for you as a reference. So step 1, again, read the problem, define the variables. So define the variables means give meaning to them. Step 2, write the equations and determine how to eliminate one variable. And the question you need to ask yourself is, do I need to multiply to match coefficients? Then determine whether to add or subtract to eliminate, and then solve for the variable. And then, of course, once you've solved for one variable, step 5 says that you can substitute that value back into one of the original to find the eliminated variable. So we're going to start that process, and we're just going to do a basic one first. So I have this system of equations. They're both in standard form, so we know elimination is going to be the best method here. And it asks us to solve for the value of y. Now, looking at this problem, if they want us to solve for y, then that means we need to eliminate x. So I'm going to make sure that I'm going to eliminate x. That's just going to reduce the amount of work that I have to plug back in. Okay, so in looking at this example, I can see that if I want to eliminate x, then I have a 4 and a 5. Okay, 4 and 5, obviously I can't turn a 4 into a 5 and a 5 into a 4, but what I can do is I can turn each of these into 20. So I can multiply the top equation by 5, because 5 times 4 is going to give me 20, and multiply the bottom equation by 4, and again 4 times 5 is 20. So I'm going to distribute. So after I've set that up, I'm going to distribute my values out. So once I distribute, that's going to give me 20x plus 25y. And then I've got 5 times 30, or excuse me, 5 times 34 is going to give me 170. So second equation is going to be 20x minus 40y. And then we have 4 times negative 120, and that's going to give me negative 480. All right, so at this point, I now have the same coefficient. So I need to determine, do I need to add or am I going to subtract? So remember, in order to add or subtract, you have to determine which one's going to eliminate that value. So if I add 20x and 20x, that's going to give me 40x, and we don't want that to happen. If I subtract 20x and 20x, then that's going to give me 0, which is what I want to happen. So we're going to subtract this entire equation. Okay. All right, so we have 20x. So right here, we have 20x minus 20x, and that's going to give us 0, so we're going to cancel that out. All right, so then we have 25y minus negative 40y. So minus negative 40 is actually going to change this problem into positive 40. Okay, so minus a negative is going to change that to positive 40. So now I have 65y. All right, and now we are going to do 170 minus negative 140. So minus negative 140, again, is going to change this to plus. And I have 170 plus 480, and that's going to give me 650. So we have solved for y here. And we're going to finish that by dividing by 65. So you should get that y is equal to 10. All right, so if I look back, I can see that the answer here is C. Now, how can I verify this? Well, I can verify by plugging it into Desmos, and I can plug the equations exactly like I see them. And we're going to have to adjust your screen a little bit. And I see that I get the solution, -4 and 10. Well, it asked me to solve for y, and again, my y value is 10. Okay, so just a quick review there. All right, so we're actually going to go to our next example, which is the beginning of a word problem. And it's telling me that Michael has a jar of dimes and nickels. There are 152 dimes and nickels in the jar, so basically 152 coins, and a total of $11. If D represents the number of dimes and N represents the number of nickels, then which is the system? So they've already actually told us what our values represent. So they told us that D represents dimes and N represents nickels. Now, the other thing that we have in this problem is they've talked about two categories. They've talked about the how many equation, so like how many coins, okay? And they've talked about the how much equation, so how much is each one worth. So we're going to be writing two equations to represent that. So when I look at these two equations, I'm going to start with the how much. The how many. So they told me that I have 152 dimes and nickels. So I don't know how many dimes and I don't know how many nickels, but I know that my dimes plus my nickels equals 152 total. Okay. So then it tells me that the jar was worth $11. That's the how much. Okay. So I have 152 total here and I have $11 is going to represent it here. Now, this is where you got to think and use your knowledge of money. So a dime is worth 10 cents. So a dime is represented by 0.10. So I have 0.10 D for dimes. And then my nickels are worth 5 cents. So nickels are going to be 0.05. So it's going to be 0.05 N. So there's my two equations that I would represent. So dimes plus nickels is going to be 152. So we're going to get rid of A and B because they mixed up their how much and their how many equation. So they did dimes plus nickels is $11, but that's not what we wanted. We wanted dimes plus nickels is going to give me 152 coins. All right, and then of course they mixed up the value for dimes and nickels for C and D. So we're going to say the correct answer here is D. All right, so the next one, I have a 4-pound box of rice, which is a mixture of white rice and wild rice, and they sell for $180 per pound. The white rice sells for $0.75 and the wild rice sells for $2.25. How much white rice is in the mixture? So the first thing I should recognize here is I'm looking for white rice. So when I'm done, I need to make sure I've got the correct answer. That is probably 50% of the wrong answers we get is because they give us the wrong variable. All right, so the next thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at two things. So they told us wild and rice, but they didn't tell us what variables to use this time. Now, if you want to be able to check in Desmos, you need to use your X and your Y's because you can't graph Desmos using different variables. So I'm going to say X is going to represent the white rice and Y is going to represent the wild rice. Now, the other thing that we need to do is we need to represent two things. So they talked about, again, the how much of the rice, how much did the rice cost, and then how many, so how many pounds. So how much is, we know that it's $1.80 per pound. And the how many, we know that it asks us for 4 pounds. So we need to organize that information. So how much per pound? Well, we know that the white rice is 75 cents per pound. So we're going to say white rice is 0.75 x, because we already said the x represents white. Then the wild rice is 2.25 per pound. But I'm not going to set it equal to $1.80, because $1.80 only represents 1 pound. We should be able to identify that it was $1.80, but it was $1.80 for a total of 4 pounds. So if I take my $1.80 and I multiply $1.80 times 4 pounds, that's going to give me a total of $7.20 that we're going to pay for that total amount. So $7.20 for the how much equation. So at 75 cents per pound for white and 2.25 per pound for wild, and the total mixture was 7.20. Now the how many? Well, we don't know how many pounds of white, so we're just going to say X, and we don't know how many pounds of wild, so we're going to say Y equals 4 pounds total. Now, we are trying to solve for the white rice. So the white rice is going to be solving for X. That's what we're going to be looking for. Now, for this particular one, I'm going to go ahead and do this in Desmos because of our decimals that we have going on here. And that's going to equal 7.2. Then we have X plus Y equals 4. And that intersection gives me the point 1.2 and 2.8. So if you look, I have both of those answers. So both those answers are A and C. But they asked me for a white rice, which is the X value, so my correct answer is A. All right, so the next one, it talks about there are 13 animals in the barn. Some are chickens and some are pigs. There are 40 legs in all. How many of each animal are there? So it's asking us to determine how many of each animal. So we have 13 animals in the barn. We have chickens and pigs. So let's go ahead and define our variables here. So let's say X is going to represent our chickens and Y is going to represent our pigs. How many chickens? How many pigs? Now, out of those two things, we're going to write two equations. The two equations that we're going to write are going to represent how many animals, and then the other equation that we're going to write is how many legs. Okay? So we're going to completely write two different equations here in reference to the number of animals and the number of legs. So it tells me there's 13 animals. So we're going to do X plus Y equals 13. So the number of chickens plus the number of pigs is 13 total animals. Now, some are chickens. So chickens have 2 legs. So this is going to be 2X plus pigs have 4 legs. So this is going to be 4Y. And it says that there are 40 legs in all. So that's going to be 40. Now, they want us to figure out how many of each animal are there. So we're going to solve for X and Y. Now, when I look at this problem, I can see that at this point, because we're solving for both, it really doesn't matter which one we decide to solve for. They're both in standard form. So I'm gonna eliminate the X's just because that's the first one I came to. Now I have a 1 and a 2. In order to turn this this equation right here, I need to turn this 1x into a 2x. So the way to do that is we're going to multiply the whole equation by 2. All right, so when I do that, that's going to give me 2x plus 2y equals 13, and that is not going to equal 13. This is going to be 2x plus 2y equals 26. Don't forget to multiply like I just did. Make sure you multiply to the whole equation. And the second one we didn't mess with, so that we're just going to bring that one down. So you need to decide, do we add or subtract? So if we're eliminating the two x's, the only way to eliminate is to subtract. So we're going to do subtraction here. All right, so I have 2x minus 2y. That is going to eliminate, so that goes away. So then I have 2y minus 4y. Well, 2y minus 4y is going to give me negative 2y. And then 26 minus 40, that's going to give me negative 14. Now, I'm going to finish solving this by dividing by negative 2. So y equals 7. So y, we just determined, represents the number of pigs. So we now know that we have 7 pigs. Well, if we have 13 total animals, okay, so 13 total animals and 7 of them are pigs, then that means that my x has to be 6 chickens. Okay? And again, I could plug that back in and also solve for the equation the same way. All right, so for this particular problem, it says a barbershop purchased 15 hairbrushes and 5 blow dryers for $2.15. The barbershop then purchased 5 more hairbrushes and 7 more blow dryers, and the company paid $189. How much does one blow dryer cost? So for this particular problem, we're solving for a blow dryer. Okay, so if we're solving for a blow dryer, we first need to define our variables. So again, it doesn't matter which one you decide to define it as, but I would use x and y. So x is going to be the hairbrushes, and y is going to be the blow dryers. Okay, so we're going to write two equations. We're going to write the equation for the first purchase, and we're going to write an equation for the second purchase. So I'll write purchase so we're not confused. All right, so our first purchase was 15 hairbrushes, so 15x plus 5 blow dryers, 5y, was $2.15. Then I have the second purchase. They purchased 5 hairbrushes and 7 blow dryers for $189. Now, they want us to solve for our blow dryers. So if we're solving for blow dryers, that means that we're solving for y. So if we're solving for y, then we want to eliminate x. So we want to eliminate x in this problem because we're solving for the y variable. So the question is can I turn 15 into 5 or 5 into 15? And the answer to that is I can turn 5 into 15. And I'm going to turn 5 into 15 by multiplying by 3. Okay. So this is going to be, let me change colors back. This is going to be 15x plus 5y equals 215. Then if I multiply here, this is going to be 15x plus 21y, and 3 times 189 is going to give me 567. So now we do have matching coefficients. And since we have matching coefficients, you need to decide whether to add or subtract. And subtraction is going to be our way to eliminate here. So I'm going to subtract this entire problem. All right, so 15, so right here we have 15x minus 15x. That's going to cancel because that's going to be eliminated, which is what we wanted. So now we have 5 minus 21. So 5y minus 21. So that's going to give me negative 16. So if I do 215 minus 567, that's going to give me negative 352. And I'm going to divide by negative 16. And I should get that y is positive 22. So y is what we're solving for, so C is the answer. Now, I can check myself in Desmos, just like we've done previously. I can put in my original equations. That is the reason I ask you to use x and y, because you can check yourself if you have Desmos available. I know there is a few assignments where you have to show your work, but you can always check yourself in Desmos to make sure it's the correct answer. And you get the point, 7 and 22. But as long as you know that y represents blow dryers, then you know that that's the correct answer. Also, I'm going to go back to the previous problem. We did not check this in Desmos, but you can do it the same way with the chicken and the pig. So I have x plus y equals negative 13. And then I have 2x plus 4y equals 40. And again, we got 6 and 7. And we were solving for both of them. So we need to find the number of pigs, number of chickens. So chickens is 6, pigs is 7. Okay. All right, so I'm actually going to make this the last problem. And with this last problem, I have a bookstore sells used books. We have paperback books that cost $1, and we have hardback books that cost $5. The store sold a total of 100 books and made $260. So when I'm looking at this problem, I'm going to define my variables. So I'm going to do, let's say X is going to be paperback, and then I have Y is going to be hardback. Okay. So we're going to write two equations. We're going to write the dollar equation, the how much equation, and we're going to write the how many equation. So my dollar amount is $260. So my paperbacks cost $1 for the paperback plus $5 for the hardback for a total of $260. Now the how many, they sold 100 books. So that's going to be X plus Y equals 100. Now, they want us to solve for paperback. So if we're solving for paperback, we're solving for X. And if we're solving for X, then we want to eliminate Y. So we're going to eliminate Y here. So I'm going to rewrite these so that I have a little bit more room. So I have X, 1X plus 5Y equals 260. And I have X plus Y equals 100. Now we decided that we need to eliminate Y. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to multiply the second equation by 5. So when I rewrite that, that's going to give me 1x plus 5y equals 260. Then we're going to multiply right here. And when we multiply, we're going to get 5x plus 5y equals 500. So we're still going to eliminate the 5's, but we have to decide whether to add or subtract. And the way that that's going to happen here is we're going to subtract, because if we add them, we're going to get 10y. So if we add, we get 10y. If we subtract, we get 0, and that's the one we want. So I have 1x minus 5x. So if I have 1x minus 5x, that's going to give me negative 4x. So then I have 5y minus 5y. So 5y minus 5y, that's going to be eliminated. And then we have 120 minus 500. So 120 minus 500, that's going to give me negative 240. All right, so we're going to solve now. We're going to divide by negative 4. And I got that x is going to equal positive 60. All right, so the correct answer here should be C. Let's check that. Remember, we're solving for x, but we're going to put our equations in. So I have x plus y equals 100. And I have 1x plus 5y equals 260. All right, so we're going to find that intersection, and we got our answer is 60 and 40. And we were solving for x, which that is the correct answer. All right, so for this problem, it's talking about 5 pencils and 10 erasers cost $1.05. And then it says 2 pencils and 5 erasers cost 44 cents. How much would 7 pencils and 7 erasers cost? So we have two situations. We have 2 purchases and 2 amounts of pencils and erasers that were actually purchased. So when I'm looking at this particular problem, they want us to figure out how much 7 pencils and 7 erasers cost. So we first need to figure out how much does 1 pencil cost, and then how much does 1 eraser cost. Once we can find out how much 1 of each costs, then we can figure out how much 7 and 7 cost. So we're going to start by defining our variables. So we can say that x is going to represent the pencils, the cost of the pencil, and y is going to represent the cost of the eraser. Okay, so they tell us that 5 pencils plus 10 erasers is a total of 105. And then 2 pencils plus 5 erasers equals 44 cents. Now for this particular problem, I'm going to let us do this graphically. So I'm going to go to Desmos, and I'm going to put in 5x plus 10y equals 105. And then we have 2x plus 5y equals 0.44. Now, the one thing about this is you can see you can click here, but you're not quite sure where you're clicking because there's like several dots. So we really need to zoom in and make sure that we're getting the intersection and not like a intercept itself. So when I zoom in, I see that my answer is 0.17 and 0.02. So basically what this is saying is my pencils are going to cost 17 cents and my erasers are going to cost 2 cents. So the question is how much does 7 pencils and 7 erasers cost? So all I have to do is set up, and I need to multiply. So 7 pencils, so 7 times 17, plus 7 erasers, so 7 times 0.02. So I'm going to type that in. And I get that the total cost is going to be $1.33. So for that one, you just had to find how much a pencil and 1 eraser was, and then once you found out how much 1 of each cost, then you were able to find out how much 7 pencils and 7 erasers would cost. All right, and for this one, I have Maria purchased 2 pairs of earrings and 4 necklaces for $29. And then Kelly purchased 3 pairs of earrings and 2 necklaces for $21.50. How much would 1 pair of earrings and 3 necklaces cost? So again, this is kind of a similar situation. We need to figure out how much 1 pair of earrings is going to cost, and we need to figure out how much how much 1 necklace is going to cost. And then once we can find out how much 1 of each is going to cost, then we can figure out how much the total of it together. So I have, let's say, X is earrings, and Y is going to be necklaces. Okay, so for Maria, so we need Maria's equation. So Maria had 2 earrings, so 2x plus 4 necklaces for a total of $29. And then Kelly had 3 necklaces plus 3 earrings plus 2 necklaces is going to be $21.50. All right, so given the situation, we're going to have to solve for x and y here. So this is going to take a little bit more time because we're going to need to solve for both. So what I'm looking for is I have x's and I have my y's. So which one is going to be the easiest to eliminate first? And the reason I say which one is going to be the easiest is because for my x's, I have a 2 and a 3. I can't really multiply anything by, or I can multiply something by 2 to give me 3, but it's definitely going to wind up being a rational number like a fraction. So we have 2 and 3 are not easily going to turn into each other. But I do have 4 and 2. So I can easily turn a 2 into a 4. So I'm going to turn that 2 into a 4 by multiplying this whole equation by 2. So the first one I didn't change anything with, so I still have 2x plus 4y equals 29. And the bottom one I now have 6x plus 4y equals, and that's going to be 43. So we now have that coefficient that is the same. So we need to decide, so after we multiplied here, and we're going to need to decide whether to add or subtract. So remember, if we add 4y and 4y, that's going to give me 8y, and we don't want that. So if we do 4y minus 4y, that's going to give me 0. So that's what we want. So we're going to take this whole problem and subtract it. All right, so we have our first piece. So we have 2x minus 6x. So 2x minus 6x, that's going to give me negative 4x. Then we have 4y minus 4y. That's going to cancel. And then we have 29 minus 43. So 29 minus 43. That's going to give me negative 14. All right, so we're going to divide here. So we're going to divide by negative 4. And we have x equals, so we have negative 14 divided by negative 4. So our x value is $3.50. So my earrings are going to cost $3.50. So we now know earrings are $3.50. But we need to also solve for the y value. We need to figure out how much necklaces are going to cost. So we're going to pick one of the original and we're going to substitute back in. Okay, so I'm going to do 2x plus 4y equals 29. It doesn't matter which one you pick. So I'm going to take what x equals. So x was 350, and I'm going to substitute it for the x in that problem. That's going to give me 2 times 3.5 plus 4y equals 29. So this is going to be 7 plus 4y equals 29. And we're going to solve it. So we're going to subtract 7. So 4y equals 22. And then we're going to divide by 4. So y equals $5.50. So we now know, after we have solved that my y value equals $5.50. Okay, now before I go any further and we go further into the answer, let's actually check that this is right. So I'm going to check it in Desmos. I'm going to plug in my originals. So 2x plus 4y equals 29. And 2x plus 2y equals 2150. So I'm going to zoom back out, find the intersection, and I just realized I typed the piece wrong. That should be a 3. So let's do that again. And now we have confirmed that my x is 350 and my y is 5. I keep saying 350, 3.5, and my y is 5.5. Okay. So in doing that, we now need to figure out how much is it going to cost for one pair of earrings and how much is it going to cost for 3 necklaces. So 1 times my earrings, so 1 times 3.5 plus 3 necklaces, so 3 times 5.5. So we have 1 times 3.5, which is going to still be 3.5, and 3 times 5.5, and we are going to be spending a total of $20. So the correct answer there was C. So just remember, if you need any extra help, please don't hesitate to ask us. If you feel like you need some extra examples, and we'll try to send you some videos. There's always YouTube. You can easily search elimination word problems or whatever it may be, or you can attend the Zoom office hours, or remind, email, whatever it is you need to contact us, please let us know.